Hey, what's up YouTube, and hi, welcome to the channel. I'm your host JujuGU, and today we'll be going over the core set refresh. I'm going to split up this video into two sections. We'll be going over all the new cards, and then we'll be going all of the cards that were changed. For this video, we'll be going over the new cards. So, it's happened. Core set refresh. It's coming out tomorrow. They just released the list. I want to go over everything. This is going to be, I briefly skimmed it over before doing this video, just so that I can form like some sort of general opinion. But for this video specifically, we'll be going deep. Not like deep because there's so many cards, but I want to give some quality analysis. So with that being said, let's get started with our death cards. So first up, we have Nightveiled Imp Squeezer. That's an interesting name. Rare creature, Nether, death card from the core set, of course. It's a 2-mana 3/2 roar. If you control an Impling, deal 3 damage to your opponent's god. Huh, not bad. For a 2-mana 3/2, which is pretty average in stats for a 3/2 in my opinion, you're dealing 3 damage additionally. This could be good. Obviously 3/2 is kind of like okay. It's an okay stat line. It's like pretty average, to be honest. It's not like skeleton heavy level or anything like that. But you do get to deal 3 damage to your opponent's god, so if you're running like an aggro imp deck, this could be worth. Next up, we have Bag of Cats. This is going to be your rare. It's a weapon. Wow, that's interesting. Death core, 3 mana, 5 health. At the end of each turn, summon a 1/1 Impling, then remove 1 durability from this relic. Okay, I don't know why you wouldn't run why you would run this over Necroceptor. You'd probably run this if you didn't have a Necroceptor, but if you do, that's great. If not, this is your substitute. So that's feasible, right? Also, better version of Necroceptor if you're running it in an imp deck, but honestly, Necroceptor is a really good card. You should probably run it because it's infinite value, and it doesn't lose health. But if you don't have a Necroceptor, that's a good card. Melician Avenger is next. It's rare creature, Anubian death core, 8 mana, 8/6. Frontline, Afterlife, destroy the strongest enemy creature. Okay, so it replaces itself. Frontline is, a little weak for an 8 mana card. Stats are definitely weak for an 8 mana card. This should be at least a 10/10 or a 11/11 or a 12/12 because of the amount that you have to wait to play the card. For at 8 mana, you have to wait 12 turns. 12 turns to wait to play this card. So this should be a 12/12 if we're going over like the price points in mana for the game. Anyways, I digress though. I mean, it's good that it has lower health though because it's Afterlife. You want it to die. And it takes something with it, but I don't see myself playing this card in anytime soon. Next up, we have Animon Pustulant Imp Sloth. That's kind of a wild name. Legendary. It's a creature. It's a Nether. It's death. It's a 4 mana 2/2. Once returned, summon an Impling. After this creature attacks, is pulled to another zone, or a friendly creature dies or is summoned. So I think the devs are trying to push this imp strategy. These are a lot of whenever effects, right? So it's a 4 mana 3/3 on summon. You can, on the same turn you play it, you can trade your other minions into other creatures so that they die and hopefully your opponent's creatures die. Then you can fill your board with imps. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you're already running Bag of Cats, you can just summon the imps that you have from Bag of Cats and just have an endless army of imps. If you have Necroceptor, this works the same way. Honestly, you can get good value of it if you have, if you can summon at least 3 zombies from its effect, and it already does that when it's initially summoned. So from there, you just need to summon 2 additional zombies for it to be worth its mana cost, which is interesting. Next up, we have Faithbreaker. This is going to be your epic card. It's a 5 mana 4/4. When a god takes damage, this creature gains 1/1. Synergizes well with Soulburn, the god power. Becomes a 5 mana 5/5. Although if you play this with Soulburn, it's actually technically a 6 mana 5/5. So you have to be aware of that. Do I think the stat line is good? No, but it has some snowball potential. So if you wanted to play this in maybe a mid-range Nether deck and you didn't have any better mid-range options, you can totally run this card. Next up, we have Milician Magistrate. This is your epic creature, Anubian Death core. 3 mana, 3/3 roar. Give a friendly Anubian afterlife. Return this creature to the board. This is interesting for sure. To get the roar effect, it requires you to not only have a minion on board, but to have an Anubian on board. And for that, you'd probably have to build your deck around it. Do I think this effect is worth it? Probably not, unless there's some broken combo within a Nubian, like maybe a Pallbearer, maybe a Canopic Hoarder. No, probably not a Canopic Hoarder. But yeah, I mean, you can bring back a Pyramid Warden if I'm not mistaken, but why would you want to bring back a Pyramid Warden? Because that Pyramid Warden just resummons another minion for your opponent. So these are some things to think about. 3/3 for 3 mana is not very impressive of a stat line. It's decent, but pretty average at best. I would only run this if you're running like a dedicated Anubian deck that revolves around summoning, bringing an Anubian back from the board. Maybe some sort of death rattle or afterlife effect for Anubians. Next up, we have Petulant Fire Spreader. As I quickly check okay, this is good. Shout out to Voice Meter Banana. Okay, we're good. I need to do that because sometimes I'd be starting videos and the audio is not working, and I don't like that. Anyways, so back to the video. Petulant Fire Spreader. This is a common creature, another death. 1 mana 2/2. Okay, pretty standard. After this creature attacks, deal 1 damage to each god. Okay, cool, awesome. So one thing that I forgot to mention about Faithbreaker, when a god takes damage, this creature gains 1/1. For Soulburn, to proc, it actually damages your god and another god. So technically this effect procs twice. And if that's the case, it becomes a 6 mana 6/6, which is decent. But then every turn that it stays alive, it grows even more. So this is definitely a card to consider. Yeah, totally realize that on the fly. That's what happens when we're making the video right as, the thing comes out. So bear with me, but I think this card can be very, very good, if not at least, very decent at best. But if we start seeing more cards, if we start seeing a deck built around this card, like maybe a deck built on like cards that both damage you and your opponent, you can definitely proc this effect very often, twice per turn, which is very interesting, possibly more times. Okay, anyways, Petulant Fire Spreader. After this creature attacks, deal 1 damage to each god. That's why I went back to Faithbreaker, because now that I think about it, this can proc Faithbreaker and it can do really well. So attack with this card, play Soulburn, your Faithbreaker automatically becomes a 5 mana 8/8, which is pretty nutty. All right, cool. Monster Eyes, common spell, death core. Set one of your creature's stats to 4/3. All right, this is probably most ideal when you want to play it on like a smaller minion, maybe one of your imps or maybe one of your zombies. Pretty good. Kind of mediocre, but I mean, the 2 mana 4/3 is not bad, especially if you're replacing it with a weaker minion. But it is kind of situational, right? Because you need to have a creature on board for this spell to be useful. Infestation, common spell. 4 mana. Fill your board with 1/1 implings. Your god takes 3 damage. Okay, so you get to summon. It's a 4 mana 6/6 worth of stats, which is good. You take 3 damage, but that could possibly be okay. Yeah, synergizes well with Impling decks. Maybe there's some sort of combo here, but for the most part, 4 mana 6/6 is a decent amount of stats. And you only take 3 damage, which might be beneficial in a class like Death. Okay, next up we have Swiftpox. Sounds like a really nasty disease. It's a 5 mana spell. Destroy an enemy creature with 6 or less health. That's really good for 5 mana. Maybe you can use this on maybe a well, there are a lot of cards that have six or less health, right, in the game when they're just fully healed. So this can be useful as a removal tool. 5 mana is a little bit expensive, especially for a card that only destroys one creature, but you never know. That creature could be a really big threat. Like, what if it has protected? That's what I like about the Death class. Their removal cards typically don't do damage. They just destroy things outright. But yeah, so that's a decent removal option to consider in the core set. Tomb Carver is next. This is your creature. It's a 4 mana 4/5 afterlife. Heal your god for 3. Oh, okay, it's a 4 mana 4/5 afterlife. 4 mana 4/5 is very standard. The afterlife is actually very pleasant because you get to heal your god, right? So standard stats and body with a decent effect, pleasant effect actually. Screams in the Night is a rare spell. This is your Deception cards now, so we're moving on to Deception. It's a 2 mana, draw 2 creatures. If one of them is another, draw another. Okay, so some nether support coming in for the Deception cards. Very interesting stuff, actually. I'm not sure if this card will see play, but it's a 2 mana, draw 2, and can possibly draw you 3 cards. So if you're playing a Deception nether deck, this could see play. Hey, if you draw another Demogorgon, you can draw another Demogorgon, right? So, interesting stuff. Next up, we have Thought Siphon. We went over this in the previous section, but it's a 0 mana spell. Put a creature to sleep. If it was already sleeping, draw a card. 0 mana spell is very interesting. Can set up for things like that, which aches. It's also sleep support, so if you have an opponent's creature that's already sleeping, you can play this card to basically be a 0 mana draw 1. That could be very nice. If you need to stall a turn or two, you can play this card to put a creature to sleep and hopefully save yourself some life, right? So very interesting card. 0 mana spell is always an interesting design in my opinion. Next up we have Selfless Guildmate. This is your it's your 1 mana 1/1 guild. Hidden for 1 turn, give +3 strength to another one of your guild creatures. This could be good in, obviously guild decks, but it's hidden for 1 turn, which is nice. You can play this on a, Guild Enforcer. You can play this on any of the guild support cards, so this card can have potential. You got 1/1 stats worth of 1/1 worth of stats in the body, and then you also give 3 strength conditionally, so that can be worth for 1 mana. Next up, we have Merrick, the Keeper of Many. This is your Deception Core 3 mana 2/3. Okay, hidden after one of your creatures attacks the opponent's god. Set this creature's strength to that creature's strength. So the fact that it has hidden, after you can pair this up with like maybe a Shadewalker or some other buffed hidden minion. So when you attack, you turn Merrick's strength into that same minions, and then that Merrick can attack. Because it has hidden, it has a high possibility of staying alive for the next turn, so that's very good, in my opinion. Next up, we have Witherfingers. Okay, so this is your epic. It's a creature, it's another Deception. It's a 7 mana 8/6. Hidden, roar the 3 strongest enemy creatures, gain burn +2, and go to sleep. That's a pretty interesting thing to think about. It's honestly kind of like Demogorgon, except it's a better version of Demogorgon, essentially, because it has hidden. Yeah, you're not healing itself, but you get to put your 3 opponent's 3 strongest enemy creatures to sleep. They get burn +2, so that you deal a total of 6 damage, and possibly even more if those creatures stay alive. So can be very good, actually. And the fact that it has hidden is great, because now you have an 8/6 that's waiting to attack or trade into whatever your opponent is going to play the next turn. So this is a card to look out for, in my opinion. Next up, we have Whisper Baron. This is your epic creature guild, Deception Core, 3 mana 2/3, hidden. When you summon a guild creature, this creature gains 1 strength. Lots of good guild support in the Deception class right now. It's currently, it's also hidden, so there's some support there for hidden cards. I think the card has a lot of potential, especially because it's hidden for as long as you want it to be. You can get this to be really big if your opponent doesn't have any removal to deal with it. Very good card, in my opinion. poses a very good threat. Okay, moving on, we have Dark Precarion. This is your common creature, Nether Deception, and it's your 1 mana 2/1 roar, put a creature to sleep. It's targeted sleep effects. Could be good, could not be good, but because it's a Nether card, it has some support there with the Nether Deception decks. 1 mana 2/1 is pretty underwhelming, but the sleep effect is pretty nice in my opinion, so we could see this play. Next up, we have Phase Crawler. This is your Nether 2 mana 3/2 with Hidden. Nothing else. It's 2 mana 3/2 is a good stat line for 2 mana cards. Hidden is Hidden is a good effect because you know what, you're that creature can't get targeted only by random targeting effects. There's a lot of value here. Do I think it's the best hidden card? No, but if you're running a deck full of hidden creatures, this is definitely a card to consider. The only thing I wish is the 2 mana 2 health is kind of underwhelming, but the fact that it has hidden allows me to kind of like overlook that in a way. Renelian Street Slinker. Okay, this is your creature, Nether Deception core, 3 mana 4/2 backline hidden. This is pretty decent in my opinion. You get to play a 3 mana card. It's a 4/2. 4 strength is nothing to scoff at. It also has backline and hidden, so after you attack it with hidden, you can establish your board by having some creatures in front of this Street Slinker. Can provide extra damage, so that's something to think about as well. Ronalyn. Okay, it's only Ronalyn. It's not Ronelian. Anyways, Ronalyn Sparrow is a guild creature. It's a 1 mana 2/2 ward hidden for 1 turn. This is a lot of value for a 1 mana card, honestly, because 1 mana 2/2 ward is already on par, but because it has hidden, makes it actually really good. For a 1 mana creature. So this is a card to keep an eye on in future lists for Hidden Rush Deception. Next up, we have Ronalyn Worshipper. World Whisperer. I don't know why I said Worshipper. Creature, guild, deception, 2 mana 2/2 when this creature attacks a god, draw a card. It's decent. 2 mana 2/2 is not a good stat line for a 2 mana card, but I mean, when it attacks, it basically replaces itself. I think there are better options at the 2 mana slot, but you can totally run this card if you don't have any better options. Okay, moving on to the light cards, we have Militant Thesis. This is going to be your 3 mana 2/3 roar, target a creature. If it's yours, give it 1/1. If it's not, give it -1/-1. This card, 3 mana 2/3 is not a good stat line in my opinion for 3 mana. I mean, it does give you 1/1, so technically it's 3 mana 3/4 just separated, but for the most part, I think this card is a little underwhelming in terms of stat line. Okay, next up we have Vexing Vicar. Rare creature, it's a mystic, light, it's a 1 mana 0/1 frontline protected ward. This card, anything with protected ward is worth taking a look at because of how good that combination of keywords is. Frontline is also good. I could definitely see this being played in maybe like a Mystic Light Zoo. I don't know if I'd play 2 of it though, but it's a possibility. 1 mana 0/1. I wish it had at least 1 strength so that it can do damage to anything that attacks to it, or just do damage by attacking, but because it doesn't, I don't know if I like it as much. However, there is probably a place for this card somewhere in the Mystic world, right? Could be a Mystic deck lying about. Next up, we have Prayer of the Desperate. We went over this in our preview, but as a reminder, it's a 4 mana spell. Each of your creatures with strength 2 or less get +2/+2. This card can be very good in Zoo Light. Not much to say here, but it can definitely buff a board very handily. 2/2 is a very good card, and even if you play it on just 1 minion, that's still kind of good. If you play it on 2, it makes up for its mana cost. If you play it with 3 minions, you're exceeding mana costs. So I would definitely try to play this with 3 minions on board 3 with strength 2 or less just to get my mana's worth. But this card is very interesting and can be incorporated in Zoolite. Next up, we have Odessa Knight Arbiter. This is your legendary creature. It's also a mystic. It's a 4 mana 2/5, same stats as CERN. When a card is played, its owner expends 2 mana. Yeah, that card is good. This card is very good. Any cards that prevent your opponent from playing mana efficiently is very good. If you look at historically what cards like did this, I mean, the main one that comes to mind is going to be Lotheb from Hearthstone. Lotheb made it hard, or it had a battle cry where it increased the cost of your opponent's spells by 5, and that basically disrupted your opponent's next turn. This has the same kind of effect, although it's a little bit lesser because it's only 2 mana. But man, mana penalty cards can be very powerful when done right, and this card has the potential to do very well in this metagame. Next up, we have Prophet of Doom. This is epic creature, Olympian Light. It's a 3 mana 1/4, increase the cost of 6 and 7 mana spells in your opponent's hand by 1. This is also a mana cheating spell or a mana cheating card. Can disrupt your opponent's strategy very often, especially if they're running like a card like Apocalypse Now or other things like that. So yeah, we would definitely see this card see play in tournament settings at least. Might not be as useful in ladder because of just the variance in how many decks you run into in ladder, but definitely a card to consider when constructing a tournament lineup. Next up, we have Parthian Recruiter. This is an epic. It's a creature. It's a mystic. 3 mana 3/3. When a character is healed, summon a 2/2 Acolyte. This card has potential, actually. Especially in decks that have mass heal effects, like that one Jackalope card, the 1 mana 1/1 that heals all your friendly creatures for 4, can definitely fill up a board that way. Not much to say here, but this card can be good, depending on the deck. If you build around your deck around it, there we go. Talking is hard. Nice. Next up, we have Selfless Protector, right? Or was it Parthian? Nope, Selfless Protector. Okay, so this is your 1 mana 1/3. After one of your creatures dies, pull it from your void into the board and obliterate this creature. This card can be pretty good if you can activate its effect right away on your turn so that you have the agency to choose which creature you sacrifice in order to proc that creature. But because playing it on curve is a little risky, right? Because you're giving it you're giving your opponent an opportunity to react to the card and possibly destroy a better creature. So that's something to think about. But for the most part, you can get some good value out of this, and it's a 1 mana 1/3. I probably wouldn't play this on turn 1 though for 1 mana, because if your opponent destroys it right away, you don't have anything in void because it's your first turn, so you're pretty much wasting mana at that point. Cool. Next up, we have Mace of Calling. This is a weapon. It's a 2/3, 2 mana 2/3. Roar. Add an Acolyte to your hand. Okay. Not bad. It's a Mace of Calling. It adds an Acolyte to your hand to possibly play next turn. Can be useful. But why would you play this over Ritual Rod, Because Ritual Rod is really good. Next up, we have Call of the Light. This is the spell. It's a light card. 2 mana. Add 3 2/2 Acolytes to your hand. Not bad, especially if you need cards to like discard, or you want to use those 2/2 Acolytes for discard fodder, or you're maybe running out of minions. This can reset your board or refill your hand, kind of, even though having 3 2/2 Acolytes is it's not very impressive. But I mean, that is an option for this card. Do I like it? I probably wouldn't run it in any deck unless I would consider it if I was running a deck that revolved around Acolytes, but I don't. Outside of that, I don't think I'd play it. Next up, we have Wrong Path. This is your spell. It's a 3 mana card. Pull an enemy creature to the top of your opponent's deck. Draw a card. Yeah, this card is good. This card is very, very good. I wouldn't say like broken, but I would say it's a very good disruption tool because not only are you removing a creature or a possible like threat off board, you're putting it back to the top of your opponent's deck, meaning your opponent isn't going to see any new cards until the turn after his next turn, right? And that's very good. It's a very invaluable like thing to play, and it sets your opponent behind in terms of strategy and development by 2 turns because he plays one of the cards, you play wrong path, the card goes back to the top of the deck, so and then he has to draw the card again and play it again. So that definitely like busts out, or that definitely causes a little bit of a tempo advantage for the person who plays this card. Overall, great card. I'm excited to test it out in certain decks. Lightbringer Priest is going to be your creature. It's a mystic. It's a 4-mana 4/4. At the end of each turn, your weakest damaged creature is healed for 1. So I actually like this card. And it's 4-mana 4/4, so it's a little underwhelming when it comes to stats. But at the end of each turn, this card is, because it has the end of each turn clause, its effect is really easy to proc. And possibly if you're running cards like Zoo Light, or if you're running like big beefy minions, this can definitely take advantage of like being able to heal all the time or at the end of your turn. It also combos well with High Thaumaturge. It's the 2-mana 1/2 that when a creature is healed, you get to draw a card. Also synergizes well with CERN. If you have CERN or Thaumaturge on the field, this card can provide some additional value, which is nice. Cool. Now that we're done with the light cards, we're going to go over to the magic cards. So first up, we have Static Aetherbug. This is your 1-mana 1/1 ward. After you play a spell, deal 1 damage to a random enemy character. Wow, that's pretty good. It also has wards, so it can't be defeated so easily by like a 2-mana God Power or anything like that. After you play a spell, you deal 1 damage to a random enemy character. This can be good in like Miracle Magic. You play cheap spells, deal 1 damage. Could do really well. However, 1 damage is very, I don't know if it's worth it to play a spell for 1 damage unless it's like something like a Dimension Door or a Form of Power or something like that. I also don't like the random targeting because sometimes it can be super unreliable, but at the same time you're getting a lot of value after playing a spell, so this could be good. Next up, we have Helpful Aetherfox. This is your 3-mana 2/3. Reduce the cost of a spell in your hand that costs 3 or less to 0. This card is good. Can synergize well with Vow of Learning. Can synergize with Defend the Ramparts. Basically, any other spell that costs less than 3 mana. This card can definitely create an impact in the metagame. On top of that, by discounting a full card 3 mana to 0, you're on top of that you have a 3-mana 2/3 body, and this can potentially be a better version of Alchemist's Assistant. But yeah, it's just overall a very solid card, and if you're running any Magic deck, this is a very like good card to take a look at for sure, even if you're not running much 3-mana spells. Well, you kind of have to be running 3-mana spells or 2-mana spells, cheap spells in general, but it's definitely something to think about if you're running a tempo version of a Magic deck. Cool. Next up, we have Flame of the Second Shattering. This is a spell. It's 4 mana. Deal 4 damage. If you have 9 mana unlocked, deal 8 damage instead. This can be a very interesting finisher for Magic decks, especially if you get to 9 mana. However, Magic decks don't really get to 9 mana. I would only play this card if I had a control strategy and I can get to 9 mana very reliably. Like, this could possibly be a card to consider in Ramp Magic, but until then, I don't see it seeing too much play in the metagame right now. Cool. Next up, we have Dralamar, Breaker of Crystals. Legendary creature, mystic, 6 mana, 4/5, which is below average for the stat line. But this effect is nuts. After you play a spell, refresh mana equal to its mana cost. Wow. So you're telling me I can summon this card, play something stupid like a Worm Breath, and get 4 mana back. Not bad. This gets even better when you play something like the 5 mana spell that when you play this card you draw 3. There are a lot of possibilities here. Dralamar is a very good card, and I would not be surprised if we saw it see play because it can be pretty nutty if left unchecked. Next up, we have Academy Pyromaniac. This is your magic card. It's a 3 mana 1/4 frontline ward. Very good combination. If you have 9 mana unlocked, gain 5/5. Wow, that's amazing. If you have 9 mana unlocked, you gain 5/5. So for 3 mana, you can summon a 6/9. Nice. With frontline and ward. So this can be this is interesting design, and I think it can be used in ramp decks. We'd have to test it out though, because 3 mana 1/4 seems kind of weak. But again, like in a ramp deck, when are you? Yeah, 3 mana 1/4 seems kind of weak. In a ramp deck, you are hitting 9 mana pretty often, but I don't know if it's worth the slot, because wouldn't you just want to play like, I don't know, your Helion Elite or your Polyhymnia instead of playing this at 9 mana? Anyways, I digress. If you're running a ramp deck and you want to defend yourself against aggro, this is a card to consider because not only is it good early game as a body to help you quell, to help you quell like any aggro rushes, it's also a good card that can be played when you have 9 mana late game and can possibly win you the game because of the stat boost, right? A 3 mana 6/9 is nothing to scoff at. Talking is hard, y'all. Cool. Next up, we have Aether Snap. Okay, so this is your epic spell magic core card. 3 mana, summon 2 1/1 static Aether Bugs. Okay, so we went over this card in the preview when we talked about the leaks, but now that we know what static Aether Bugs do, I kind of like this card. I like this card a lot because if you play Helpful Aether Fox, discount the Aether Snap, and then you, I don't know, play Magic Inks, right? The 2 mana spell that copies your lowest costing spell in your hand. So you play this card, Helpful Aether Fox, into the Aether Snap, Magic Inks the Aether Snap. You play the first Aether Snap. Oh no, you play the, You play the first Aether Snap. You play the second Aether Snap. The 2 Aether... the 2 static Aether Bugs deal 1 damage because you just played a spell. You now have 4 static Aether Bugs on the field, and now you can just go off on your opponent's field, right? So, I don't know, play Dimension Door into Form of Power, into Ancient Text, any of the 1 mana spells, and each spell basically does 4 damage to your opponent's creatures. So that's an interesting thing to consider and take a look at. It'd be even crazier if you ran Stormfield, right? Because then you just Aether Snap, Inks into Aether Snap. What if you had a second Aether Snap or a third Aether Snap, right? So you Aether Snap, Inks. Oh my goodness! Now every spell does 1 damage. I can go on and on about this card. I think there's some potential here. What if you Stormfield your field full of Aether Snaps to give you +6 like spell damage? So very, very interesting card. If Aether Snaps did damage to, or if Aether Bugs dealt damage to Oh. Whoa. It's a random enemy character. I thought it was just a random enemy creature. So it can even go face. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm seeing the deck now. So yeah, anyways, I can go on and on about this. Maybe we'll make a deck on this card, but for the most part, Aether Snap, good card. Definitely keep an eye on that because there's some crazy potential here. Cool. Next up, we have Erratic Portal. This is your Delve a Magic creature. Put it into your hand and add 2 copies to the bottom of your deck. Wow, it's a 1 mana spell. Oh, and because you delve. Oh, yeah. You delve it. So you get to choose whatever magic creature you want, whether that be a Cersei, whether that be a Palace, maybe a Oni Spell Sword, possibly a Static Aether Bug. There are so many options here. I actually kind of like Erratic Portal because of that. It just sets up a lot of things for you in your deck. So that's definitely a card to look out for. Next up, we have Blizzard Bolt. This is your 2 mana spell. Deal 3 damage. Hey, wow. Yeah. You can go face with this card. Am I starting to see? Oh, there's a lot that we can do with this card. Yeah, Magic has just gotten like really strong over the course of this core set refresh just by looking at the first couple of cards. So definitely keep an eye out for this class. Next up, we have Librarian's Prayer. 3 damage. 4c6, draw a card. Wow. Or 3 damage. 3 mana, 4c6, draw a card. Wow. You get to 4c6 and then draw a card. That's a good amount to 4c for sure. You go through like what? 1/5 of your deck? Less than? That's a 1/4 of your deck right there. At least a 1/4 of your... opening hand is at 26, so anytime this card is at 3 mana. Oh yeah, this card is at 3 mana. So like you basically get to look through a 1/4 of your deck by the time you get to play this card because 3 cards at mulligan, that's turn 1, you draw a card, turn 2 you draw another card, turn 3 you draw 6 cards. Therefore, you have 24 cards left in your deck by the time you play this card. 26 out of 24 is like what? Yeah, it's 1/4. So, wow. Very good card. And it synergizes with, I don't know, like Helpful Aether Fox, Form of Wisdom. Oh, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. Oh my god. Next up we have Cram. This is your 3 mana magic spell. Okay, I'm just getting a little hot reading all these magic cards, but you draw 2. 3 mana, draw 2. Are you kidding me? 3 mana, draw 2. So you can play the Aether Fox on turn 3, reduce a Cram, and then you get to draw 2. So for 3 mana, you get a 2/3, and then you draw 2 cards. Hell yeah, I'm playing that for sure. And either way, like this is pretty much on par with like the drawing rules of Gods Unchained, right? 1 mana will typically equate to drawing 1 card. 3 mana, when it comes to draw cards at least, 3 mana will typically equate into drawing 2 cards, and 5 mana will equate into drawing roughly 5 cards, right? Roughly, these are estimates, of course, but this is typically what you get for those mana price points, and this is right on the money. So I'm excited to test this card out for sure because, I mean, draw 2 is always nice. You know what card was draw 2 back in the day that was really busted in any TCG, not just Gods Unchained? Pot of Greed, and this card is a Pot of Greed for 3 mana. Granted, the decks kind of work differently here. Pot of Greed didn't have a cost to play. For this card, Cram, it does cost 3 mana, but you get the point. Arcane Intelligence in Hearthstone, pretty much. All right. Next up, we have Unacceptable Monstrosity. I'm just taking my time with these magic cards, man, because they're doing pretty well. It's a mystic. It's a magic card. 9 mana, 12/12. Frontline Protected Ward. Very respectable stat line. 9 mana, 12/12. I mean, it can go even further, right? I feel like if you, excuse me, I feel like 9 mana 12/12 is good, but I'm playing this card because it has frontline, protected, and ward. That's pretty much why. Because protected ward is a great combination, and the frontline just means your opponent has to deal with it if they want to attack your face, which is very good. Very good in my opinion. Of course, it's expensive at 9 mana. You have to wait 15 to 16 turns to play it. But if you're running a ramp deck, maybe that's a little less. The problem is getting there. So it'd be interesting to see if this card will be viable to play. But Frontline Protected Ward is a great combination. Okay, cool. That's it for the Magic cards. I went a little overboard in explaining all of those, but like I said, I haven't seen these cards like yet. I briefly glanced over them when I was setting up for the video, but for the most part, going over that Magic section got me really excited, and that's definitely something to keep an eye on, because from first impressions, just by looking over those Magic cards, Magic's pretty strong. So, all right, moving on. We're going to the nature cards, which I think got buffs as well. So, Sanctum Guardian. Well, these are new nature cards, but you get what I mean. Sanctum Guardian is an Amazon. It's a 1 mana 1/3, good stat line. Regen 1, gain 1 health if you control another Amazon. So it's a Marshwalker for Amazons. Not bad. Very good 1 mana card, in my opinion. So you can summon, I don't know, Nimble Pixie, right? So 1 mana 1/1 that summons another Nimble Pixie. Anyways, summon a Nimble Pixie, play Sanctum Guardian. Hey, you have a 1/1, 1/1, and a 1/4, which is essentially what? 3/6 worth of stats for 2 mana. Not bad. Very not bad. And it has regen, so it can heal itself after every trade. Next up, Canemy Sniper is going to be a 2 mana 1/3. After one of your Amazons attack, deal 1 damage to a random enemy creature. Okay, so that turn that we just went over, summon a Nimble Pixie into a Sanctum Guardian, give you a 1/1, a 1/1, and a 1/4. Then turn 2, if your creatures survive, you summon Canopy Sniper, and so Nimble Pixie goes face, Nimble Pixie goes face, your Sanctum Guardian goes face. You've just dealt 3 damage to an enemy creature. And because it's turn 2, if you're going first, your opponent's creature will probably have less than 3 health. Hey, you just cleared your opponent's board, and from now here on out, you're just going to snowball your advantage. So Amazons are looking pretty strong right now. Not going to lie. Cool. Moving on to the next nature card is going to be Grove Summon. It's a spell. 2 mana, add 3 random wild creatures to your hand. Yeah, that's a good card. 2 mana, draw 3. It's not draw 3, sorry. 2 mana, generate 3. Drawing is different from generating because you can't really control the creatures that you develop. The random wild creatures could be incredibly useless, but they could not be incredibly useless. I guess it just depends on the situation you're in. I would love to play this card late game to kind of hedge the amount of dead creatures I draw. Yeah, the more mana you have, the more playable the cards you get from this Grove Summon will be. So yeah, that could be good. Next up, you have Hevner Grimshuck. This is your legendary nature card for the core set. 8 mana, 5/5, Confused, Frontline, Overkill, Ward, Roar. Gain 1/1 for each wild creature in your void. Okay, so because you're playing this at 8 mana, that's like turn 13, right? Turn 12, turn 13. I can't do math. Anyways, turn 12 for sure. So this can get pretty big, and because it has overkill, or because it has ward, makes it very survivable in my opinion, not vulnerable to removal or anything like that. But of course, because it's 8 mana, it gets easier to ping the later on with the game, especially if you're against a class like Magic or Nature, because later on in the game they can just ping you with their god power, and then use like a ratify or use a lightning storm or whatever's appropriate to remove this card. So that's something to keep in mind. I think it's decent, but definitely a finisher for higher top end heavy nature decks. Okay, next up we have Curious Wisp. We went over this in the preview video. Be sure to check that out if you want like the full summary. But this card synergizes with Mistress Scythia. Can be good, cannot be good. The only problem I have with this card is if you destroy your deck with Mistress Scythia and then play the Wisp, you're dealt with a deck full of Wisps. And the thing about nature is the class in general lacks draw. Like, you can generate cards, but you can't really draw cards. So every turn, your draw will be a Wisp from now on. And I don't know if you like that, because you'd probably have to survive, like, what, a couple turns for your Wisp to be worth it? So, yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, you can play, like, a 1-mana 1/1, but at the same time, alright, yeah, like, you'll be able to play 1 Wisp per turn, but would that be worth it in the long run because of like how limited you can draw with the class? If I was playing this in a deck like, or if I was playing this in a class with like plenty of draw, like Death or Magic, this would be a lot more powerful because I can play a Wisp and then draw, like play a the 5-mana draw 3 or play a Cram and draw 2 and then play additional Wisps. Like that kind of stuff matters, right? But because it's in nature, which is a class that doesn't have draw, the typical situation is you're going to play your Wisp, shuffle, have nothing else to do the next turn, maybe play another card, maybe play a Canopy Barrage, whatever, any card that you've saved from Mistress Scythia, and then the next turn you draw a Wisp. And I don't know if that's worth. So, but very good late game potential, prevents you from going into fatigue. Could be something we see as a splash choice in fatigue nature decks. You never know. But can be a very interesting design overall. Okay, I went super into detail. I wasn't supposed to do that, but that just happened. Okay, so next up we have River Jumper Captain. This is your Amazon nature. 3-mana 1/4 ward. Gain 1 strength for each Amazon you control. Wow. So we're going to go back into that scenario we did. Nimble Pixie into Sanctum Guardian into Canopy Sniper. Attack. Kill everything with your Canopy Sniper. Turn 3, you get to summon a River Jump Captain. A 3-mana. How many pixies or how many Amazons do you have on board now? You have 1, 2, 3, 4. A 3-mana 5/4 with ward, mind you. Yeah, that seems fair. That seems like a busted opening. Very good card. That's all I have to say. Okay, Barksworn Trailmakers, common. Amazon Nature Core, 1-mana 2/1. Afterlife, summon a 1/1 Amazon Recruit. Oh, okay, that's very good, in my opinion. It's yeah, it's another one of those early game Amazon cards that you can run in your 1-drop slot. So, very very good choice for a 1-mana card, especially because it's a 1-mana for 3/2 worth of stats. Okay, Frisky Fox Pup. Say that 5 times fast. We have it's a wild card. It's a 1-mana 1/3 with Confused and Ward. That's pretty good. It has Confused, so but because it has Ward, makes it a little better. I don't know if I like it yet, but it serves as a 1-mana option for any wild deck, so it could be a solid 1-drop. Maybe if a deck is built around wild cards. Barksworn Protector. This is another Amazon. It's a 2-mana 2/3 with Ward. Solid. It's not your Canopy Sniper, but it's solid. 2-mana 2/3 and Ward is a good keyword. Next up we have Barksworn Ranger. This is another Amazon. It's 3-mana 3/3 hidden for 1 turn. Okay, yeah. This card can be really good, especially if you partner it with like a buff card for Amazons. So that card can see play. Next up, we have Angry Angry Hippo. I love that name. It's a wild card, 5 mana, 4/6, confused, and frontline. Ah! You know what card synergizes with this? Ominous Burrow. Yeah, you can totally run Angry Angry Hippo with Ominous Burrow. Yeah, this is a good card. I like it. 5 mana, 4/6 is a good stat line. Confused is but the front line makes up for it, for sure. Next up, we have Bonded Unicorn. Oh, these are our neutral cards now. So we're done with the nature cards. We're going in alphabetical order here. So next up, we have a neutral card. This is a rare creature. It's a mystic. It's a 4 mana, 3/4. Give protected and ward to one of your other mystics. Ooh. That's good. That's very good. It's a 4 mana, 3/4, which is subpar for the 4 mana stat line, but in return, you're giving protected and ward to one of your other mystics. Give this to a Frumentary Researcher, High Thaumaturge. What else can we do? A Bright Mage that lost its ward already. There are so many mystics that can be beneficial, that can benefit from this. Very good card. I'm excited to play with this. Okay, next up we have Ekrilith, Spawn of Pendrelith. Okay, nice. Legendary, it's a dragon, a neutral card. It's a 6 mana 1/1 with frontline ward. Roar, gain 1/1 for each card in your hand. Overall, that's a very solid card. Nah, what am I saying? I don't think it's solid. It's not as solid as we think because, let's see. If you didn't play any cards, right, and you waited the full 7 turns or the 6 turns, because that's the earliest you can play it with a bag of tricks. You start off with 4 cards, right? Turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, or turn 5.5. Yeah, turn 6. Play the bag of tricks. Play this card. This becomes a 6 mana 9/9 with frontline ward. That's very good if you don't play any cards, right? But because we're playing a 2-player game and your opponent's trying to kill you, you're going to have to play cards to defend yourself. Realistically speaking, this might be like a 6 mana 5/5 with frontline ward, depending on the situation. So, and depending on the matchup. If you're playing like a deck that's a control deck and is pretty passive, yeah, you can probably get away with this. But for the most part, Gods Unchained is a game full of tempo, a game where tempo matters. So your opponent will be playing stuff on board, and you're gonna have to react. So yeah, typically this will be, I'll say, a 6 mana 5/5 or a 6 mana 6/6 on a good day. Yeah, with frontline ward, and that could be pretty decent in my opinion. And it's a dragon, so handles really well with dragon support. Maybe you play this with a Ladon, although a Ladon is very expensive. Anyways, yeah, I digress. Next up, we have Crystal Seer Acolyte. This is your creature. It's an Atlantean. It's a 1 mana 2/2. Okay, that's pretty standard for a 1 mana card. When your opponent plays a spell, randomly give 1/1 to one of your Atlanteans. Ooh, this is a card that can counter like Miracle Magic, for example, spell heavy decks. Standard stats for a 1 mana card. Has potential upside for Atlanteans, of course. Is this going to be like a must include? We'll see. There are pretty good Atlanteans out there, but this might be a very viable option in Atlantean decks. Next up, we have Belligerent Insomniac. This is an Olympian. It's a neutral. It's a 4 mana 4/5. When this creature goes to sleep, sleep is removed. Hey, that's cool. Very anti-board wipe death, very anti-sleep deception. I'm sure this card will be a tech card in future metagames where board wipe death and sleep deception are prevalent. Very niche card, and it's a decent stat line. 4 mana 4/5. Super good. Next up, we have Valknir Flamecaller. Okay, so now we're going into the war cards. I'm excited to delve into these. So this is going to be your 2 mana 2/2 Roar. Give 1 strength to your other Vikings. This can be pretty good buffs your OD, but if you're playing Valka's Presence, you get to buff like the Vikings you summon off of that. Can be very good in aggressive Viking decks. The only thing that I have to say about the card is 2 mana 2/2 is a pretty weak stat line, so there are potentially better options at the 2 mana slot, but for the most part, this can be a good Viking card if you're running like a Viking Swarm deck. Cool. Next up, we have Sound of Drums. This is your spell. It's a 3 mana spell. Give 2 strength to your Vikings. Oh. Yeah. If you're playing a deck full of Vikings that like to swarm, this card is very good. I think it's a better finisher than Valknir Flamecaller, for sure. Because what's better? Yeah. Because it's a spell. Yeah, it's 1 mana more than a Valknir Flamecaller, and Sound of Drums doesn't have a body compared to Valknir Flamecaller, but you're giving 2 strength. It's better burst damage, in my opinion. So if you're running a finisher, this could be a possible finisher in dedicated Viking decks. Next up, we have Wandering Blacksmith. This is your rare card. It's an Olympian. It's War. 3 mana, 3/3. Roar, reduce the net mana cost by 1 of a relic in your hand. Ooh, that's kind of spicy. I love cards that cheat mana because obviously, like, mana is a currency, and on powerful cards, cheating mana is better, right? So being able to play your cards earlier can be very good, especially if it's a card like, I don't know, what's a decent 5 mana War Relic that you can play. You don't even have to play a 5 mana War Relic. You can just play this with an Enduring Shield and have a 1 mana Enduring Shield. So that could be very interesting. It's a 3 mana 3/3, which is a decent stat line for that body at that mana price point. So definitely an interesting card. Can definitely see play in the meta, especially with decks like maybe Scythe of Harvest, maybe Magic Missile Launcher. You can discount an Enduring Shield, and it has a decent body, so you're not just playing it for the mana cost or the mana reduction. Next up, we have Ulfgar, Eater of Bears. Ulfgar, Eater of Bears. Sorry, I had to say it that way because I feel like it would sound kind of cool. Let's see. 3 mana 3/3 as well. After you play a Viking, summon a 1/1 Valknir Reader and give it Blitz. Oh my god. So this card can help you, build up a board for your Sound of Drums or your Valknir Flamecaller. Also, summon the Vikings that this card summons get Blitz, so you can just ram these Vikings into a minion to hopefully trade. Be careful about giving your opponent more favor, though. That's also something you have to watch out for if you're trading into bigger minions. Cool. Next up, we have Runecaster of Oris. This is an epic. This is a creature. It's also a Viking. It's a 4 mana 3/3 with Roar. Obliterate any non-Viking cards in your hand. Draw 2 cards. Okay, well, hey, if you have all Viking cards, you get to draw 2 cards for 4 mana and a 3/3 body. So I think that could be decent in dedicated Viking decks for sure. And typically Viking decks should have a lower curve because they're aggressive by nature, unless you're playing like some variant that runs a Valka and is more control oriented. But for the most part, aggressive Viking deck that runs a ton of Viking creatures, you play this card to refill your hand and keep up the pressure on board. So I could see this card seeing play. Tartesian Blood Axe is a weapon. It's a 4 mana, 3 strength, 2 durability relic. After you attack and kill a creature with this relic, draw a card. Wow, that's pretty good. You essentially do 6 damage to draw 2 cards for 4 mana. Of course, it's a little more complicated than that because you have to attack and kill a creature. You can't really go face to draw a card, but I could see this totally seeing play in control-oriented decks or even just like tempo decks, right, for war. So yeah, this card is a lot of value for 4 mana. I think this will see play in certain decks. Next up, we have Defiant Farmer. This is a common. It's a creature, Viking. It's a 1 mana 1/1 Afterlife. Deal 3 damage to your opponent's god. Hey, that's not bad. Not bad. It's a 1-mana Viking, could possibly see play. I mean, this is a very aggro-oriented card because you want it to die and you want it to deal 3 damage to your opponent's god, possibly to activate the frenzy effect. I mean, obviously it's going to do more chip damage. Heal is a lot weaker in Gods Unchained. It's a lot rare unless you have a rune of healing in the Sanctum, but I digress. For the most part, this card can see play. I just think 1-mana 1/1 is it's a weak body. I'd be happier if it's a 1-mana 2/1, so at least it does like a little more damage, but yeah, I digress. Next up, we have Singerstone Axe. This is also a weapon. It's a 2-mana, 3 strength, 1 durability relic. Roar, if you control 2 creatures, this relic gains +1 durability. This card is pretty good, in my opinion, especially if you're running those aggressive Viking or maybe just any aggro war deck, really, because it's really easy to summon 2 creatures on turn 1. Especially if you're going first and your opponent doesn't like answer those creatures. Maybe you play 1-drop into Bag of Tricks into another 1-drop, and then your opponent plays a creature, doesn't do anything to attack or kill your board. And it can set up a scenario where you have a 2-mana 3/2 relic, and that could be really good. So I definitely would keep an eye on this card because it has a potential, especially in more aggressive aggro war decks. I need a weapon. I wanted to say it like that. It's a spell. It's a war card. 2 mana. Pull a random relic from your deck and give it +1/+1. Oh, baby. So, that Tartesian Blood Axe, right? If you play I Need a Weapon into the Tartesian Blood Axe, you get to turn that Blood Axe into a 4 strength, 3 durability relic that does 12 damage in total and draws you 3 cards for a total of 4 mana. That's value. 10,000% value. You don't even need to use I Need a Weapon on the Tartesian Blood Axe, right? Because it makes Enduring Shield better, because now it's it's a 2 mana 2/3, so you get to proc the protected effect 3 times. It makes Scythe of Harvest even better if it makes it a 4 mana 5/3, so it deals 15 damage, well, 16 if you include the strength bonus. With God Blitz, mind you, so it can attack the turn you play it. Holy shiza. This I Need a Weapon enables like some really crazy plays for relics, and I would keep an eye out for this card and other cards and other relic cards within the war class, because any card that gives 1 strength and 1 durability should be given a closer look in terms of value. Blacksmith of Tartes. It's a creature, it's an Olympian, it's a war card, 4 mana 4/5, which is standard for the 4 mana price point. Good job, devs. Roar, if you have a relic equipped, this creature gains 1 strength. So it turns into a 4 mana 5/5. That's amazing. Dude, tempo relics. Tempo war relics. We'll definitely see a thing for sure. 4 mana 5/5 is pretty strong. Can definitely see play at this price point. It's a strong card overall. And our final card of the new Core Set Refresh cards, part 1 of this video series, is Valknir Battle Dancer. It's a common, it's a creature, it's a Viking, 5 mana 4/4 with Blitz and Ward. Overall, super good card in my opinion, and here's why. 5 mana 4/4 is below average for that price point, that mana price point. You get to do 4 damage right away because it has Blitz. If it survives, it has some survivability added because it has Ward. So your opponent doesn't have the freedom to ping it and destroy it right away. It has to ping it, pop the Ward, and then go in with a removal spell. So your opponent has to burn additional resources if it stays on board. So that's good. On top of that, in a deck like, I don't know, mid-range war or control war, if you're running Hector, this card gives Hector blitz and ward if it's in your void, and that's a pretty decent combination in my opinion. If you're running other cards that have protected, like maybe a master tactician, maybe an Odie, maybe any of the other cards in the war class that have protected, yeah, your Hector becomes really strong. So I like this card. I think it will see play in certain war decks. Definitely one card to keep an eye on. Ooh, that was a doozy. We just went over 70 new cards from the war set. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked what you saw, or if you like this content, please like the video, support the channel, subscribe to the channel. If you have any thoughts or comments on the new cards down below, what card are you excited to try? Please share it in the comments so we can get some discussion going. Honestly, I'm excited. Personally, I'm excited for the Magic cards because they're just spicy. I love spicy Magic decks. But I'm also excited for Amazons, Vikings, Mystics, Lights in particular. So we'll be doing some testing this whole weekend. I'm very excited for that. So until then, be sure to tune in or stay tuned for the next video that we're about to do, and that's going to be us going over all of the card changes from the core set that aren't new, right? So we'll be going down this list. Oh my god, that's a big list. Might be a doozy of a video, but hey, you know what? Let's do it. Anyways, thank y'all for tuning in, and see you next video. Peace, y'all.